We're live. All right. All right, cool. Let's get rolling. People have been waiting long enough. They've been clamoring for us, Rene.
Nice. Let's get dangerous.
Let's go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Friday, August 27th, 2021. Today on the iMore show, we're looking ahead to what we can expect and what we hope to see from Apple this fall, because we're just a few weeks away from what we think is going to be a pretty packed event. Joining me today as a special guest is YouTube's own Rene Ritchie. Hey, Rene.
Finally, I've come home.
Yes. Yeah, it's time. This is our fall spectacular, our fall preview, and we got a lot to talk about today ahead on the show. But first, a little bit of news that broke fairly late last night. As far as these things go, Apple has announced some changes to policy and some clarifications, as they call it, to certain policies on the App Store. So, Rene, why don't you tell me a little bit about what Apple announced last night?
So, do you know that scene from the original Avengers movie where the Black Widow is sitting there with the Russian general and Colton? No, it's not Colton. It's
Coulson.
Coulson calls and she's like, "This idiot is giving me everything," and he's like, "I not give you anything." That is what it reminds me of. It's sort of like they announced this settlement for this class action lawsuit that involves apparently 99% of U.S. developers, and it's all like Apple says they're going to keep this new under $1 million 15% commission rate going for at least 3 years. Apple's going to keep the current algorithm for App Store search going for at least 3 years. They did get annual transparency reports out of it. And the settlement is being paid in the form of $100 million fund for American developers. And I guess some people got salty about this. This is an American court case and an American settlement. So if you live in New Zealand or Canada or Belgium, it doesn't apply to you. It's just how to do the newsroom when I can, Joe.
Understood that reference.
Nice. Yeah. So Apple basically, I don't want to say did nothing, because they are going to have to produce a transparency report and they are going to have to set up this $100 million fund, but they clarified that you can email customers outside the App Store if the customer doesn't opt out, and you with permission, basically.
Yeah. Rene, I was going to say you forgot the most important part, the emails, Rene, the emails.
Yeah. The emails. Oh God, yeah. So it's like it's hard not to see this as a complete victory for Apple, especially because it's the same judge that's overseeing the Tim Epic versus Tim Apple lawsuit, which is also looming, and she's gonna have to certify this. So, I mean, good Apple legal. So I'm gonna back up for a second. The thing that bothers me so much is that there is real problems with the App Store. It's been around for 10 years. It needs real revolution. It needs to be rethought in a modern context. But we keep getting lost in these stupid discussions about like Epic and Spotify and Basecamp, who just want to be more like Apple. And also people are like the 30% and Monopoly, which are like total red herrings that have nothing to do with actually fixing the App Store. And so I get super frustrated.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm going to echo some sentiments I've seen from developers on Twitter over the last, 20 hours almost. And when I'm just asking, who is this for? Like, really, ultimately, who is this for? Is it for the court? Because it doesn't feel like it's for developers. It doesn't really feel like it's for Apple. So yes. I just have to wonder, like, what's with the performance here?
It's an important fight being fought really poorly. Is like my big takeaway from this. It's like and I think a lot of the things, like a lot of the problems, and I get in a lot of trouble every time I say this, but the biggest problem is that apps are moving from high value scarcity into low value commonality, Like you used to have to buy Photoshop and Final Cut, and they would cost $1,200, and they came in packaging, and developers could charge a lot, and people could afford to buy an app every couple of years. Like I wouldn't upgrade every version. I'd upgrade like every second or third version, and you get upgrade pricing and all this. And it was a very different business. It's like the person who used to make wooden toys, but now you're in a hit-based pop culture format, and there's going to be it's like being Taylor Swift. There's like developers going to be Taylor Swift, and hundreds of thousands of them who are never going to get anything. It's like the way YouTube works, the way iMore works. Like news used to be really expensive. You'd have to pay a fortune to get newspapers and magazines, $4 a magazine, $1 a newspaper. Now people expect it to be free, and I think Apple could give most developers everything they want. It wouldn't change very much, like upgrade pricing and those sorts of things. But I think a fundamental, I know some people are pessimists and say we're heading towards subscription apps where you pay, $30 or $20 a month and you get all the apps you want. And then developers get basically what the streaming music industry gets now. But like the whole world has changed, and I don't think anybody's actually addressing it.
Yeah. It's, you could say big stuff from Apple, but it really doesn't feel like it. It just feels, hey, we're doing something. Yeah, it doesn't really feel like it.
Who's the lawyer that agreed to this? I mean, like, just from who's the lawyer that agreed to this? Like, this is the fastest way to get a Lamborghini. I don't know.
Lambos in record time.
Lambos, yeah. Time to Lambos. 0.3 settlements.
All right, let's move on from this to why we're actually here today. I know it's still August, but I put on my fall flannel for this because
nice.
We're looking
Cannabis
forward.
Says, thank you.
We're looking forward to what we're expecting from Apple this fall. September starts next week, folks. We're barreling towards it. First of all, let's guess the event. I'm thinking September 14th. So there have been some rumors that really support that more recently, but yeah, September 14th just seems like the nice, logical date, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I could see it being a week late. I can't see it being much earlier. Usually, Labor Day would force it onto a Wednesday, which has happened in the past. But with a virtual event, I don't know if that's as big a concern. It might be. I don't know how Apple is set up to broadcast these, but maybe it's not such a big deal as having to manage an actual event with thousands of people on the Tuesday after Labor Day. But I could also see it being a week later. If I think that it's much more flexible with the timing. So when they know they can say iPhones are arriving in 10 days, we'll have the event.
Yeah, my fear, and we're going to talk about software first, is my fear though is it'll be like last year where they had the event on a Tuesday and they released the software the very next day, that Wednesday. And that's just not how they've handled it in the past. They've usually given us a week or so breathing room. And I'm just so worried they're not going to do that. They're going to do the same thing they did last year this time.
Yeah. I mean, well, Joe, old editor's trick, you go to the iOS 15 preview, you remove the letter P, and then you hit updates.
Now we have actually, I'm glad you brought that up because we have some special new shininess that we're rolling out this year when we're going to be reviewing the software. So
nice.
It's not that simple anymore. I went and I made it more complicated, Rene.
Joe.
I did this to myself.
I see Oliver Haslam in the chat saying daily heart attacks. That's what I'm expecting from Apple in the next 3 months.
Yeah, for those who aren't aware, Oliver is one of our news writers at iMore, and it is his job to be constantly panicked by what Apple may do on any given day.
Yes, he's a black belt in banter, though,
that's true. That is absolutely true. All right, so let's talk software first. The stuff we know.
Okay.
The stuff we've been playing with for the last few months. Yes. iOS and iPadOS 15. We're
getting a good 80% of it at launch.
Yeah, a solid 80. For the most part, Rene, I don't know what your experience has been. I think it's been pretty stable this whole time. I mean, I think there was some battery issues in the beginning, but it really solidified by like the third or fourth beta.
I had zero issues with my iPhone, like nothing that I couldn't attribute to Pokemon Go or a social media app. And my iPad the springboard would crash a few times, like in beta 1 and 2. I would get not frequent, but like once a day I'd have a springboard crash. But since beta 3, it's been rock solid too.
But of course, we couldn't have just a drama-free iOS and iPadOS beta now, could we? Because there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of consternation about the changes coming to Safari, or coming and then sort of not coming at the same time. Not coming if you don't want them to.
Yeah. What an ordeal.
I think probably I really don't know where to start with this. Like, what is the biggest culprit? Is it the new design on iPad and Mac, which is really like those are very similar, but iPhone is a whole different animal compared to the other two.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a symptom of a much bigger problem. And that's been sort of like, and I can't blame it completely on Johnny Ive or Alan Dye, but since iOS 7, there's been a movement in Apple's human interface organization. And the people who run it now came over from graphic design, where the worldview is very different from like when Greg Christie and Scott Forstall used to run human interface. It was when Steve Jobs said, "Hey, I like the leather in my jet. Make the app look like the leather in my jet." That's what they were dealing with at that point. But it became much more what they call authentic, digital authenticity. But at some point, there was this confusion where they thought less things was simpler. And that's not true. Less things is less things, less stuff. And that's not always simple. Like if you can't tell what a button is, that's not simpler. If you have to do 3 taps instead of 1 tap to access something, that's not simpler. It's visual simplicity at the expense of functional complexity. And I think this is one of the things that just exemplify that the most, where you put the address bar at the bottom of Safari on iOS 15, which is great because the phones are so big I can reach it now. But like all my buttons are gone, so what am I even reaching for? And I've got to like do 3 things to tap on it, and that doesn't make it one-hand ease of use better. That's making me do 3 motions instead of 1. And it's just like completely. It's almost like the colossal Mac screw up of 2013 to 2019. It's like they just went totally off the rat trail, and they're working their way back. But what was the thinking that went into this?
Yeah, how did this happen? Let me tell you something, Rene. I from just a look perspective, I appreciated Beta 1 Safari on iPhone from just a look perspective. But yeah, the functionality stuff, getting to, reader view of all things to hide on an iPhone, reader view. What
I couldn't find my bookmarks. Like it took me forever to find my bookmarks. I use my bookmarks, Joe.
Yeah. I use those. That's why I put things in them.
Yes.
I use bookmarks less. Once I really became a tab person, I just leave all the tabs running. It's me draining my battery.
The floor is a big shelf. Why not make use of it?
Yeah. A floor is just a big shelf that can't fall down.
Yes.
Unless you use it as a big shelf too much. But yeah, so like I've really enjoyed like tab groups, but thinking about tab groups and thinking about the way Apple's designed tabs on the iPad. And this actually goes back to like how things are now. Like Apple is not great with you having too many tabs open at once in Safari on iPad. It's a little bit like, now I can't speak for macOS Monterey because I actually haven't spent any time with that beta this year. But like in Big Sur, at least on Mac, the tabs just shrink and you can see the little favicons and all of that. But, like most other browsers. But on iPad, it's always been this thing where they get shoved over to the side and eventually it becomes like a carousel that you swipe through and they go, whee! And I don't know. It feels like iPadOS 15 kind of makes this worse, even with the changes they've made in recent betas.
There's this old concept. I feel like Tom Holland now in a movie. It's old movie. There's this old concept that you're either Mario or Zelda. With Mario, like you don't need any instructions. You try to run left, you can't, so you run right. You run into a turtle, you die. You learn to jump over the turtles. Like they don't need any instruction book. Like you learn by doing it. And if you have a really good interface design and there's few enough options that and the actions aren't just so destructive, like you can figure them out. But then you get to a certain point and it's so complicated, you got to have like the character pop up and explain everything to you, which is what increasingly is happening in iOS. And it's just there's so few places to like the address bar. The address bar, you tap in the wrong, like you tap the address bar, but are you tapping to reload now? Are you tapping? Like there's so many things that you can do. It's so overloaded. There's so many collisions that is just, it's too much. And it's because they removed all those extra buttons. You know, I used to have Mario and now I'm getting Zelda, and I'm getting a Zelda that I no longer have hands to use the controller on. And I think that's why they had to back off of it and go back to a much more, what I'd say, considerate implementation.
Yeah, and I like the implementation. Obviously, it wasn't from this beta. It was, I think, the previous one where they brought in they brought the Chrome back, but you can put it all on the bottom, or if you want, you can move it back to the top. And there are two ways to do that. I feel like someone's had that in their back pocket for a while, and they were just waiting to be like, see, it's I appreciate it because I definitely like the concept of control, like nav bar controls all at the bottom. Everything else is just content above that. Making things, one hand reachable. That's great. I don't know what it is about using an iPhone that compels me to try to use it as one-handed as possible when I have two hands and I can hold it in one and move my hand all around it. But I just like holding it in one hand and using it like that and keeping the other hand in my pocket.
It's because one hand in your pocket, the other one with a peace sign. I mean, like, it depends which reference you want at this point. Or you're doing a walk and talk where you have your Starbucks in one hand, your phone in the other hand, you're trying to get to Leo McGeary's office.
See, that's easy. That's easy enough to make, but I have no excuse. I just like my hand to be warm. It's about to be full.
Yeah, no, but like some of the issues, like normally I would love this. Like I would usually love this so much because I think Apple needs to experiment. And sometimes it's to our detriment. Like the 2015 MacBook 12-inch had both the Force Touch trackpad and the butterfly keyboard. Force Touch trackpad, genius. We still have it. Butterfly keyboard, terrible. It's gone. But they tried both and one of them worked. But this is just the thought process concerns me. Because over the years, because Safari is so popular and had so much Chrome at the top, websites put so much of their interface at the bottom, and then Apple comes and just paves over that interface with the address bar, so you can't get to like the options on some websites anymore. And it's I think right now it's a much better version. And my guess is someone in HI was just super in love with this, managed to convince whoever, like Darren or Craig or somebody, that they should at least try it. But there was always like we don't know. Make sure you have a backup plan. And what we're getting now is like them scurrying to implement the backup plan.
Yeah, and I like a lot of the interactions that they've got on iPhone. Swipe up and you got your list of tabs, or swipe over to swipe through your tabs. That's all good. I really do think those are nice additions. But for people who like iOS 14 and previous Safari, you can now also get that. And so you don't ever have to change. Don't worry.
And I like swiping between tabs. I've always wanted to do that. That always felt like a natural way of doing it. Like even before, like I love WebOS, but even before WebOS, the original version of iOS 1.0 Safari had that card view for tabs. That's what you got. You press the button and you get the cards to swipe through. And then Palm made that the entire interface, and then Apple dropped that from Safari. And like it always felt so natural. And it's not quite that anymore because now we have more of a Post-it note interface. But still, like being able to swipe between them, swipe up, it feels like a subset of the way the whole OS works.
Definitely.
We have so much pumpkin spice in the comments, Joe. Is that a thing? Is that an American thing that I'm not?
Yeah, look, pumpkin spice, it's a fall thing here in the US. You can't go anywhere without someone, shouting about their pumpkin spice latte. You're like, that's what you should get about America. Fast cars and pumpkin spice lattes. That's fall.
Okay, so is Apple going to have a pumpkin spice iPhone case to go on with all this?
So there was that rumor a while ago that the iPhone 13 Pro phones were going to get that sort of bronze copper color. What if it's not that? What if it's pumpkin? What if it's shiny pumpkin?
Oh, we discovered earlier in the week that if you go to Apple's United Arab Emirates store, there's an Hermes iPhone case for like $600.
Wild. Just on the United Arab.
Yeah, you can get it from Hermes, the Hermes stores in America. It's not in the Apple store as far as like Apple has a broken page for it that doesn't come up. I hope Oliver Haslam is still listening and he's all over this. But if you go to like the Apple America store in search results, you can find it, but the page doesn't exist. But it does in the Hermes stores, and it does in the United Arab Emirates stores on Apple.com. And it's like, it says Hermes on it. It's like the brown color, and I think it's only for the Pro and regular 12, not for the Mini or the Max, but $600. He's already on it. All right, awesome, Oliver.
Wild. Well, I mean, this is also a company that makes a $400 luggage tag for the AirTag.
Yeah. So why is this not on the American page? Like, did they consider this was the limit? Like,
Is this
watch
one
bands?
step too far?
Yeah, watch bands are fine. AirTags are fine, but we're not going to put your $600 case on here. You're going to have to run that yourself. Hermine.
Absolutely astonishing. Really.
Yeah.
Now, I want to move on because obviously the drama with iOS really is focused on Safari. I mean,
yes.
Outside of some of more recent announcements that we've talked to death on this show. But moving on, WatchOS 8 feels kind of like the tiny release. tvOS aside, tvOS has not really been a big factor for years, but WatchOS 8 of the operating system that Apple really seems to care about. That's a tiny one this year, man. It's kind of,
it's maturing. Like, it's getting to the point where there was a lot of obvious holes that they had to fill, and now they've filled a lot of those holes. And I think they're starting to figure out where they can add more value or specify or improve. All that said, they didn't improve the Siri watch face at all. So definitely work to be done.
Oh yeah, and yeah, no Siri watch face, no sort of watch face customizer that I think a lot of us would want, or no third-party watch face.
No photo face with massive complications, which is all I've wanted, so I can make my Superman watch face.
Yeah, there's a lot, there's still stuff to be done, but I think the low-hanging fruit, as we often say about Apple software, I think the low-hanging fruit has all been done picked.
Well, like Rob T07 in the chat is saying, like, it's Apple Watch independence, which we're getting closer to every year. Like, every year we get a couple of features that makes it more and more independent, but we're not there yet. And I think maybe we'll see what the new hardware can do. Like, if the new hardware has, like, right now the telephony is still dependent on the iPhone. If you don't have an iPhone, you can't do certain things with, like, messaging. But if they can really get independent radios in there, then I think that's supposed to become really interesting.
Absolutely. And yeah, I wrote about this last year with WatchOS 7. WatchOS 7 really felt like they were still kind of bolting stuff onto it, still making it. It was still maturing. And this year, like, it's growing up. 7, almost 8 versions in, it's growing up, and WatchOS 8 really feels like it. There's a lot of, it's gotten to the point where iOS and iPadOS and macOS were a couple of years ago, where they're just kind of like getting all of the same features, and it's starting to get, where it makes sense, the same features that iPhone has, that iPad has, that Mac has. Just wait until universal controls are finally available on Mac, and we can get maybe one day we'll get a little cursor on our Apple Watch too. Yeah,
I think, like, to your grander point, they've gotten better and better at unifying these features over time. And even now macOS is getting features day and date that they didn't used to get, because they can run essentially a modified version of iOS code. There's just so much more they can share between them. And as that stuff moves around between the watch and the phone, they start to become, which is good and bad, because you always want, like, you don't want all your tools to be screwdrivers. Like, I use a heavy screwdriver to hammer these nails, and the medium screwdriver to make screws, and the small screwdriver to punch holes, because, like, you still want the dedicated tools, but, like, as much as each one can benefit from each other, I think is great.
Absolutely. Before we move on to our next topic, I want to tell you about a friend of ours. This week's episode of the iMore Show is sponsored by SetApp. Getting things done is a challenge that everyone struggles with. One way to tackle it is to make sure you have the right tools for your computer, the right tools for you and for your computer. That means the right apps. The problem is, not all apps do what they promise, and the drawn-out search for the right solution makes it harder to get the job done. That's why there's SetApp. SetApp is on a mission to help users get more done. With SetApp, there's no more worrying about having to search for apps to solve a problem. SetApp packs over 200 apps for your Mac and iPhone into one. There's an app for almost any task, and you can stay in your flow and finish what you've started. With SetApp, you can think about your task, not your apps. A dedicated curation team only selects the highest quality apps. New apps are added to SetApp regularly, updates are free, and all apps are full-featured pro versions. It's also a great value. Instead of paying thousands of dollars for separate licenses, there's just one flat monthly fee. head over to setapp.com to try Setapp free for a week. If you like Setapp, pay just $9.99 per month. That's $9.99 per month, as long as it's useful to you. And trust us, it will be. That's setapp.com. Thanks to Setapp for sponsoring this episode of the iMore Show. All right, Rene, we've got one piece of software, and we talked a little bit about it already, that I still want to cover, and that is macOS Monterey, the one I haven't used.
Yes, I could tell you anything at this point, and you would believe me. It's like, Joe, the macOS Monterey, the USB-C port now dispenses espresso. It's amazing.
And I would say, well, that's one of those features that sounds great for the people that need it, but I would never really use.
No, you want beer.
I'm not a coffee person. I don't know how I function.
What is your beverage of choice, Joe?
My beverage of choice, it really depends on the time of day, but probably oat milk in the morning with my breakfast.
Okay.
And Coke Zero at noon with my lunch, and water in the evening.
Okay.
I'm pretty.
So you're not even a Moscow Mule like Laura Gill.
I'm not a big drinker.
No, me either.
I don't drink coffee, and I'm not a big drinker. What kind of editor?
I do drink coffee. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I was about to say, you got to get your Perry White on, Joe. You got to strap on them Perry White pants and go to work. Or J. Jonah Jameson.
I think I'll just start by saying Great Caesar's Ghost a lot, and we'll
take it from there.
We'll just take it from
Warwick.
So tell me about. Have you played around with macOS Monterey? Have you had some time?
I've been using it since the first beta. Yeah.
And how's that been?
It's good. I mean, like, the new features really round off some rough edges. It doesn't fix a lot of my complaints that I've had for a while now, and that is like, I feel like they've become slower in some ways. Like, it takes Finder forever to launch, and this is true of Big Sur as well. And ever since they added that new screenshot thing at the bottom of the screen, screenshots don't show up in Finder as fast as I want them to. I save files and I have to go to Finder, and they don't update in Finder long. Like, I just feel like they're like, and I realize a lot of this is APF, like just the idiosyncrasies of how APSF works, and it's all there. But it's different than my usual workflow. And some of the biggest features that we were looking forward to, like SharePlay, have been pushed off into the future. And we haven't been able to play with, I don't know if it's in this beta, I didn't look, but I don't think so. Like, we haven't been able to play with universal control yet either.
So this is the thing about macOS Monterey. It's 2 betas behind. Like, there hasn't been a new beta for macOS Monterey since beta 5, and we're on beta 7 of the others.
So are they working on it, or are they working on it?
Are they working on it, or are we getting it in October?
Yeah.
And like you said, universal control, I think maybe the wow feature from the keynote back at WWDC, at least as far as macOS is concerned, I think that's, nobody's been able to get hands on with it. And
no,
it's certainly the one I have an iPad right here that could
right here.
It's right. It's right there. But yeah, and that's actually one of the things I like about the concept of universal controls, where instead of Sidecar turns an iPad into a Mac accessory. Universal controls let you use them both as their own devices that still work together.
Like, it's still, there must be something going on with iPadOS, because all these, like, even with universal control, you have to start it with a Mac, and you can have one Mac with another Mac, one Mac with an iPad, one Mac with 2 other Macs, one Mac with 2 other iPads, but you can't have an iPad with anything else. Like, it's just like, and you can only use the Mac's keyboard. So obviously there's something about the Mac that allows it to be the instigator of all this. But to be honest, as much as that feature intrigues me, live text has been just transform. Like, live text and onboard Siri have been transformative. Like, yesterday, I was trying to get a transcript of audio, and I played it on my computer. I held my phone up to it, and Siri did like 95% accurate transcription of that, which is usually what I would have done with my Pixel. But it wasn't charged. I didn't want to wait for it. And also live text now, I'm forgetting. I take a screenshot and I'm in Photos and I'm selecting text, and I think I'm in Safari, because it's just behaving like Safari. I'm tapping links, I'm selecting text. It's amazing.
Live text is one of those features that really does. It's that old Apple magic, That's what it feels like. And that's on iOS and iPadOS as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great, and they've been working on things like this for a while. You get that with the built-in document scanner. It grows out of that. It grows out of their work on the neural engine and all of that. And then what's really impressive though about live text on the Mac is they've brought it to Intel Macs, or newer Intel Macs, certainly.
Yeah, kinda. Like
Kinda.
so the big advantage of having it on the neural network, on the neural engines, was that it never interfered with CPU or GPU functionality. So if you were trying to do something intensive, like render a video or play a game or process, like you don't want your computer constantly scanning text while you're doing all these things on the GPU, because it's using GPU cycles. So, but this isn't as big of a deal on the Mac, because the cameras aren't really good. Like on an iPhone, the whole point of doing the neural engine was that it wasn't just in photos, it was in camera. Like you could hold up your camera and select the text. You didn't have to take a photo, and you don't need to do that on a Mac. So Apple is offloading it to the GPU, but instead of doing it constantly, like on an Apple SoC, they're doing it opportunistically. So when you go to the thing, it's like, all right, I guess I got to make this text now, and it's fine. It works fine on an Intel Mac.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad they were able to expand it. I would certainly, I don't think I'd begrudge them keeping it on M1 Macs. But if you can expand it, do. It is truly like it's technologically magical.
The one thing I think people forget though is that like they didn't invent a new engineer to do this. They had to take an engineer who was doing something else and say, a lot of people want this, go do this now. And he's like, all right, or she's like, okay, but whatever they were working on, they're no longer working on. So we didn't get something else because we got this.
Yeah, and that actually feels kind of like the theme for this year is like this. In a lot of ways, it feels like this is almost a pandemic response year for Apple software. Just as people are like slowly going back to offices, although not Apple, not this year.
No. But they have Slack. What could possibly go wrong with that?
What could go wrong with an Apple Slack? But yeah, and I think this is sort of, this is the thing I've been saying all summer. Like they got done what they could get done in this time. You got to remember that iOS 14 was mostly built pre-pandemic, and and it was a huge release. This was all done working from home predominantly. Like iOS 15 was done mostly working from home.
Every fall, like after the OS ships, they get together with like Craig and Jaws and a bunch of people, and they have a pile of features that some of them get pushed down from Jaws' marketing department because they think it makes the iPhone more competitive, and some of them get pushed up from Craig's engineering department because there's one of the reasons people go to work for Apple is that one engineer can get their dream feature made and put onto a billion phones, and then they go through all of them and see what's important and likely to meet the shipping deadline for the next year. So that's like a year-long process.
Yeah. Definitely. I know we were all, certainly some of us at iMore were a little surprised and disappointed that there weren't any additional customization features on iOS this year. And that feels like almost a victim of that process.
Yeah. And, for a while there was rumors of a theme kit, but the people I heard that were involved with it I don't believe are at Apple anymore. And maybe that, is off the table, or maybe it's still being worked on. But the idea of that was, now that we have night mode, what can we do? Can we say we have day mode and night mode, or could we say I want my interface to be red or yellow or blue? And then developers would have the tools to respect those choices. And it wouldn't be like full on Samsung, where, like, I don't know if you remember, Joe, but when we first started up Content Central, we had people who were doing some of the help guides and they had like Comic Sans set as their font. We had to go to them patiently and say, you just can't have Comic Sans set as your font. So there's too much. Yeah, they can give you enough customization rope to hang yourself if you're not careful, but some more would be nice, like proper text kit, proper.
I mean, at this point, I'd take actual like system-wide icon replacement. I know some apps can let you replace their icon, but I mean something you can load your own, but you can still, like, if you rely on notification badges, you don't miss out on those just because you want to have a different messages icon or a different Twitter icon.
Yeah. For Stephen Perry is saying, what about the rumors that they are working on a way to get Face ID to still work with a mask on or fogged up glasses? So all of these things are trade-offs, and they depend on it's not really, it's the best way to describe this. So the way Face ID works is it takes the triangle between your two eyes and your nose, and it reads the actual geometry off of that. And that gives it enough points to be more secure than a fingerprint. But if once you put a mask on, you lose the nose. So you're working with 2/3 of the points. And that Apple didn't consider that secure enough. Like the threshold for foolability I think that's a real word. The threshold for foolability skyrocketed. The glasses thing is that Apple has a feature called like require attention, which means that if you're not looking at your phone, it's not going to unlock. And all it does is look for eyes. So if your glasses are fogged up, it's not that it can't see the geometry of your eyes. That's infrared. It can do that, but it thinks you're not paying attention, so it doesn't unlock. And you can go and turn off like attention requirement, and it'll work with fogged up glasses just fine. But I think what Apple's trying to do is figure out, can we grab enough points of facial geometry that even if we don't see the nose, because they can't scan through every kind of mask, it's not feasible. But can we figure out, a way to get enough points that it's secure enough anyway? And then can we also realize, running like machine learning or something, that the glasses are foggy, and then understand that that's why there's no attention, not that they're actually, like, we don't see eyes looking away. We don't see eyes, that sort of thing. So those are all. And then Oliver read an article saying Apple's made the iPhone Face ID 30% too insecure for him to use it. So like you gotta trade all these things off.
Yeah. And actually that's a good transition point, because now we've talked about the stuff we know is coming. iOS and WatchOS and macOS. But now let's talk about the stuff we think is coming and are pretty sure is coming. Let's talk about hardware, because that's the big money. That's the real fun stuff. iPhone 13, MacBooks, an iPad mini in there somewhere, a new Apple Watch with a new design and maybe bigger display. So let's get into it. Let's start with iPhone 13. Probably looking at something that's that's very similar to the iPhone 12.
Yeah.
With new cameras, new camera placement, if the dummy units.
And that's not bad. I mean, we know a lot of people, like some people would always buy the new version, like they could not wait. They wanted the new design. Other people like, I'm not buying a first edition anything. I'm going to wait. I'm going to go to the S year. Apple will fix all the problems. It'll be a much better experience. Mm-hmm. And so you have all these people who want the new design, and all the people who are like, yeah, you be my test, my test rabbit on that new design, and I'll buy the S model.
Seriously. And it's one of those things you got to remember, like, is Apple going to do a different design on the iPhone this year? Well, you got to remember always that they stuck with that iPhone 6 design from 2014 until 2019, like through most of 2020. Yeah. I mean, I always look at the iPhone 10 and 10s and 11 as, inheritors of that, just without the chin and forehead. It's the
iPad mini design language, basically.
Yeah, it's that same stuff, and they had it for what was that, 6 years, up until up until the iPhone 12. So we could be with this design for a while.
There's many advantages. There's brand advantages to it. Like very few people, like a lot of internet people, complain about boring. They'll say that for every phone. Samsung's boring, Pixel's boring, iPhone's boring. You're boring, basically. Like there's Omega watches look like Omega watches, Porsche 911s look like Porsche 911s. Like there's just like there are classic iconic Leica cameras look like Leica cameras. There's like iconic branding, but in a very real way, having a known target for the chassis means that everyone else at Apple can do more work. So like if you don't know what the chassis is going to be the next year, it's harder to figure out exactly what your SoC is, because you don't know what the exact thermal envelope is. But Apple had to figure that out for the iPhone 12, and it's going to be practically the same for the iPhone 13. So now the Silicon team knows exactly what they're building, and they can be much more aggressive with the A15 than they could have been with the A14. So Apple likes to stagger those things, or the camera team now knows exactly how much depth they have to work with, and how much is going to be a bump, and what's the space inside, and how do they fit the sensor shift in. It makes all of the internals much easier when you have a stable external.
And it's interesting you bring up the sensor shift, because that is one of the big rumors from this year for the iPhone 13. The cameras on the entire line, like mini to max, are going to have the sort of same setup as the iPhone 12 Pro Max camera, where it's got the bigger sensor. Are they all rumored to also get sensor shift? I know the bigger sensor was.
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if every phone is getting what, and if every camera, because like the Pros have 3 cameras on them. Mm-hmm. And the wide angle is basically, the ultra wide is supposed to be getting autofocus for the first time. That's always the worst camera in the lot for every vendor. It's just the hardest camera to do a lot of interesting things with. So I think we'll get it on more, but I don't know if we'll get it on all.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see sensor shift work its way down at least to the 13 Pro. Maybe not the 13 mini and 13, but the other Pro, I could see that being a feature of that half of the lineup. Um, though with the cameras, Stephen, unfortunately, I think you might need a new case if you get an iPhone 13 Pro Max this year. If you had an iPhone 12 Pro Max, because it really is looking like we're looking at a bigger camera bump this year. I think it stretches like on the mini from one edge to halfway across the phone. It's
Yeah.
truly, it looks like it will
Well,
be
those
truly
bump looks
monstrous.
enormous. Yeah. It looks like it's a camera bump with a phone slapped on the front of it.
Yeah, at a certain point, just like make the bump the whole back of the phone so it's no longer a bump, and yeah, the phone's just thicker now. That's that, and we just acquiesce to that. Or put more lenses in it. There's your excuse. You had to put a bunch of different. You had like
A,
12 different lenses.
was it a 2 megapixel macro? Marquez's favorite.
There you go. One that's just dedicated to black and white. It's the same. It's the same size as the regular wide lens
Yes.
or normal lens, but it's just in black and white now. Yeah, I got to tell you, Rene, I think I've said it for a while, but I think this is a mini year for me. If this is indeed the last mini year,
Yeah.
I don't want to not have gotten one. You know,
Lori Gill will cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They make that MagSafe battery pack now. You don't. There's no excuse. Go get a mini.
No. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It has like it's like Jurassic Park. It had its opportunity, or like Bell Bottoms. It had its opportunity for survival, and not enough people chose it, so that it was selected for extinction.
Yeah, that makes me sad. I think.
Yeah, me too.
I think as a company, you're in better shape when you can serve more specific needs of a wide customer base, and the wide customer base is the potential iPhone customer base.
Yes.
And the more specific needs in there that you can fill, the more people are going to buy your phone. So what I'm saying, Apple, is you're leaving some money on the table. Would you rather have some money or none money?
Well, it becomes like the car industry. Like when any market matures, you start to do segmentation, and some of the segmentation you do is wildly popular, like the F-150 pickup. That's not a car everybody needs. It's a specific car, but a lot of people buy it. And then you have like some of the quirkier cars, the ones that look like hearses or the ones that look like bugs, and those are real popular in Quebec, but nobody else bought them, so they're no longer with us. So you have to have a sustain. And I think the biggest issue with the Mini this year, like last time, the cheap phone was the small phone and the small phone was the cheap phone. Whereas this year we have a separate cheap phone and a separate small phone, which splits that market. And maybe that market together is enough to support it, but that market split just doesn't look like it's enough to support it.
I also do wonder how big a factor the pandemic was in all of this, because I mean, you really don't get like, you like the idea of having the small phone there, the mini there, but you really don't get the full impact of just how small and how light it is unless you can see it and hold it in person. And that just wasn't a thing over the last year. It just was, everyone was confined inside. And so they went with, the 6.1 inch size has been sort of the standard for a while with the 10R and the 11. And now the 12 and 12 Pro. So I wonder how much the actual being able to physically see it was a factor.
Yeah.
Rene, before we move on, I have another sponsor, another one of our friends. This week's episode of the iMore Show is also brought to you by Hover. So hey, iMore listeners, we're going to take a quick second to talk about Hover. Hover is a jumping off point for a ton of entrepreneurs, and they want you to start a business with a great domain name. Hover has over 300 domain name extensions to choose from when building your brand online. No matter what you want to build, there's a domain name waiting for it. You'll find excellent technical support available to answer any questions you may have. Their support team doesn't upsell you. They only work hard to help you get online. With free Whois privacy protection, a clean UX and UI, and monthly sales on popular top-level domains, it's hard not to see why Hover is a popular choice for people starting all kinds of businesses. So I myself have a domain with Hover that I've had for 4 or 5 years now, and it's not a .com or a .net, but it is, I think, my personal favorite domain name extension, .land. I love the .land extension because it just makes it feel like a theme park. Like Kellerland. Welcome everybody. It is just a bunch of beige roller coasters. Maybe my theme park isn't fun, but yours definitely could be. When using Hover, they have best-in-class customer and technical support. We offer domains and email to pair with your domain, and clean and easy to navigate UX and UI, and over 300 domain name extensions to choose from. Grab your domain name and many more at hover.com/iMore. Get a 10% discount with our referral link on all new purchases. Make a name for yourself with Hover. Thanks to Hover for sponsoring this week's episode of the iMore Show. All right. So we've talked iPhone. Looks, some exciting stuff coming, but I think maybe the big news comes from from two of our other products. Actually, the three remaining product categories here: iPad, Apple Watch, and Mac. So let's talk Apple Watch. New design, apparently. The iPadification of Apple devices continues apace.
Yes, the retro future chic squared off edges design.
I like it. I got to tell you, if the design renders and mock-ups and now clones making their way across the interwebs is accurate, I'm going to really like this watch, and I'm going to be hard pressed not to get one.
And slightly bigger, but I think that's probably just the screen measurement, like the bezel getting smaller and the screen getting bigger, not the actual.
Yeah.
Well, the squared off sides will be a little bit bigger because squares are bigger than curves, like in terms of volume, volumetrically, for you Apple nerds out there. But yeah, I'm super interested to see it in the watch. Those knockoffs didn't look great, but like you can never tell when whether like. When Gizmodo first leaked the iPhone 4, I thought it was hideously ugly, and now it's like one of my favorite designs ever. It just it looked gorgeous in person. So you can never tell from the leaks, but I really want to see how this design language is applied to the watch.
Absolutely. When you think about the rumor, I think it was yesterday or maybe Wednesday, that we're looking at a 41 and 45 millimeters on the watch. We spent a couple years at 40 and 44, and we're going up 1 millimeter on each watch. And then why would they do that? And then you're absolutely right that the flat sides is basically it's rolling up the glass a little bit from the sides, because right now the glass is curved, and they might add a little more display there. But yeah, I will continue to call it iPadification of everything. And this seems like it's even like more bespoke than even the iPhone design was to the Apple Watch, because the corners are supposed to be a lot more rounded, but still with the flat sides.
Yeah, so some of the rumors break my heart, but they're for my own damn good. It's like I was buying whatever unique finish they came out with every year, even though I only keep it for a year and it's expensive. So I keep telling myself every year, I'm going to go for the aluminum. And then I see, ceramic, titanium, and I would be bamboozled into getting it. But if they're really going to be ending the edition finishes, it won't be any ceramic or titanium. It's just aluminum or steel. That greatly reduces my ability to hurt myself.
And your wallet thanks Apple.
Yeah. My Hermes wallet. No, it's not a Hermes wallet. I'm just kidding.
So
stand down, Oliver.
I mean, one of the things I would request from Apple is if we're gonna get rid of the edition finishes, especially thinking of the titanium, can we bring space black back to the stainless steel watch? Can we get rid of graphite? Can we just look at graphite?
Well, it is there. It's just Hermes only, right? Like you have to buy the Hermes version to get the space black right now.
That, or I think a titanium edition. I think titanium comes in space black, but this move towards not black look, I understand it's more difficult to colorize like stainless steel than it is aluminum, or I guess titanium, although I don't know that it's actually easier to colorize titanium. But here's my argument. You're Apple.
Yes.
You're Apple. Like, you have all these arguments about what Apple owes to developers and whatnot, and what they can afford because they're $1 trillion company.
What do they owe Joe? What do they owe Joe?
That's true. What do they owe me? What they owe me? I want to. You know what? Give me a black phone. None of this graphite stuff.
Yes.
None of this jet black. Give me the piano
Vader
phone
black.
again. Yeah. Get me Darth phone. That's what I'll do. I'll rename my iPhone to Darth if we can get
Darth
an all
Phoner.
black phone. Darth Phoner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there we
It,
go.
yeah.
And a
It's
watch
just
to match it.
and a watch to match. Like and I don't think I've ever gotten a dark watch, mostly because I don't think the bands all go that well with it.
Yeah.
But
My
yeah,
first one was the space black steel.
man, I remember that first watch. That was an experience.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
gotten so good. I would imagine we're like last year's Series 6 didn't have much of an upgrade in terms of performance of the Series 5, from what I understand.
Yeah. It was just
Um,
the no, Series 6 did. The Series 6 had the A13 cores. It was the Series 5 that didn't.
oh,
It just had the
it was
digital
the Series
compass.
5 that wasn't much of an upgrade over the 4.
Yeah.
And that was really focused on the always on display.
Yes.
Yeah. I wonder. So one of the things I wonder, we talked a bit about bands, but like, will the band still fit, or is it time to say goodbye and start a new band collection, Rene?
I've actually had people at Apple say, well, and I don't know if they're messing with me. I never know. Like, well, we were thinking about changing it, but we didn't want to see you curled up in a fetal position outside the event.
So this is my question, Rene. You think you're going to save because they're getting rid of the edition finishes, but then bam, whole new band mechanism. You're going to need to.
No, I think the
spoil those
bands will
bands
fit.
again.
Like they won't change it just to be different. They'll change it if they can make it better. And I don't think they can make it better yet.
We certainly hope not, right?
For sure.
Yeah, that's gonna be a
sure.
dark day for Rene Ritchie when they finally change.
But the thing is, like, there's never a point where you can just go and, like, if you are a person who's obsessed about having everything match exactly, there's just never been a period in time where you could go and buy, or very rare. I think there was once where you could get like rose gold everything, and it was very similar rose gold.
Mhm.
But almost always, like, the blacks are all different, or they change the design of something before they get that design onto something else. And it'd just be nice if you could have, like, here is like my 2022 collection of Apple in space Pacific blue, and all with the same iPadification design.
A dongle to use your old bands. Oh no!
Oh God, a band dongle, Stephen, you must now run laps, sir, or something. There's some form of penance that you now owe Joe.
100 push-ups, 100 laps. Go.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, I was just here's an idea. You know that black that it just looks like a hole in the universe?
Yes. Dark black.
Let's get that. Let's get
Yes.
bands for that. Let's get a watch casing with that. Let's
But I
just
take everything gloss black, all the things, like a MacBook Pro, a 16-inch MacBook Pro in gloss black. Yes, please. Like, won't last, but yes, please.
I don't know why, but ever since Apple announced the iMac and they showed us those beautiful colors, I have not been able to banish the thought of a MacBook or MacBook Pro in that blue, that wonderful blue, from my mind. And I know it's not going to happen. I know that's a pipe dream, but
Mac dream.
Yeah, her Mac dream. And I just know, because that's the other thing that might be coming in 3-4 weeks. New MacBooks.
See, Annie's rocking the rose gold. Annie knows what time it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. I where are the fun colors?
Yeah.
I will never
Pros deserve some fun too.
Absolutely. Like, give me that deep blue MacBook Pro, because we're finally expecting them, Rene. M1X Max.
Yes.
Finally.
Yes.
I think this is a finally for us.
I need people to simmer down, because every year I get told, literally every year for 10 years, I get told there's no way Apple's going to call the iPhone this, or there's no way they're going to call the chipset this. And I'm like, Apple can call it anything they want. Like, it really is like Phil Schiller or Jaws types a number, and like, this is what's going to be on the posters, and that's it. And like, you're like, they can't have an M1X because the A15 will be out by then. They had an A12Z iPad Pro 6 months after the A13 came out. This is not the sort of thing that they may not, but they don't have, like, Apple doesn't have to do anything. They just, this product was supposed to come out at WWDC. It got delayed. Like at WWDC, an A12X, an M1X would have made nobody's eyes blink. And Apple, that's the same laptop they're shipping now.
Yeah. And the rumor is that the again, 14 and 16 inch are the rumored sizes, but that they're going to have the same performance, which great.
Yep.
I think people have hoped for that forever in the top of the line pros.
And I don't know if they mean same performance or same chipset, because like the Air and the Pro M1 have the same chipset, but
They don't have
the
the
Pro
same
can
performance.
sustain longer because the Pro has a fan. So it's possible that the thermal envelope or the thermal system in the 16-inch will be better than the 14-inch. And maybe that's trivial to some people. Maybe it's like we can do 3 hours of sustained load on the 14-inch and 6 hours on the 16-inch. But there, there's going to be some person that's like, woohoo, finally I can do 6 hours of peak performance.
There you go.
Max perf. So like,
maybe the fans on the 14-inch Pro will chug a little harder.
Yeah, like there's always subtle differences, but like you just want who cares? They just make it good.
Tell me something, Rene. Will you, if all of these rumors pan out, will you miss the touch bar?
No, I mean I like it and I use it, but like I never want to be more invested in a technology than the company that makes it, and I feel like that was the case with the touch bar. Like it was the fastest way to go through tabs. It would surface shortcuts that I didn't remember. But Apple hasn't done anything with it since 2016. They haven't improved it in any perceptible way. It doesn't have taptics. It doesn't really and if they're not going to work on it, why should I be invested in it? Yeah.
Just give me the function row back. I say this all the time. This is my brag, is I've completely missed the touch bar era of Macs. If indeed this goes through with the new MacBook Pros, that there's just a function row again instead of a touch bar, because my Mac's from 2013.
Flex Joe.
Of course, I also have not had Touch ID on a Mac ever, so that's disappointing.
Yes.
Yeah. Watch. I'll wait until the Face ID era of Macs.
There you go. There you go.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm most excited about these Macs. Like, of all the products Apple is theoretically releasing this fall, the new MacBook Pros excite me. Maybe because I am at this point, it's getting to be desperate need of a new MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very excited to see what these can do, what the M1X can do, and yeah, it's wild. I think we're in for a wild fall with those. Other product I want to touch on before we wrap up here, iPad Mini 6.
Yes. I feel like a Gimli level. Yes, with this.
Yes.
Yes. Exactly.
That's another one. I've been excited to see the flat sides, no home button iPad Mini. Ever since we got the first USB-C iPad Pro, I've been excited for this stuff to just, just trickle down to the rest of the iPad line. And so, yeah, the iPad Proification of the iPad line. So
yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, I think maybe a special. I would have to imagine a special Apple Pencil for a new Mini.
The H2 or something. We'll see what they call it.
Yeah, they'll actually call that the Apple Pencil number 2.
The number 2. Well, I thought that's what they should call the last one. I kept suggesting that. Nobody listened to me. The number 2 pencil. Yeah,
and it comes. They make a special yellow edition just to like tweak your nose, because the last one should have been called that. But yeah, because I think the current pencil's too big actually to fit where it should fit. Yeah,
and also like there's no Magic Keyboard for this. Could Apple make a teeny tiny Magic Keyboard? I don't think they will.
I don't know. It's an opportunity to charge at least $200. Let's say
$229. Barely functional keyboard. Logitech will.
So. Oh, definitely. Logitech is definitely coming out with a trackpad and keyboard accessory for this thing. Absolutely. Golf pencil. That's Baron in the comments. Baron. Apple Golf pencil. Perfect. Yeah. What if it is that small?
Yes.
Yeah. So Rene, what of all of the things that Apple should release this fall, like what are you looking forward to most? Is it the iPhone? Is it the iPad? Is it the Macs, the MacBook Pros? What are we?
Yeah, usually it's always like I love so much of this stuff. Like I love the watches, I love the iPhones, but I really want that M1X 16-inch MacBook Pro. I've been waiting since Tim Cook, teased us at WWDC 2020 with the Apple Silicon transition announcement. That's the machine I use. It's the screen size I want. It's the power capacity I want. The thermal envelope I want. And by jobs, I need that computer.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. that brings us to the end of our show. We have come down to the end of our hour. Rene, thank you for joining me this week for our fall preview. It's
delightful.
Exciting times. It's always great to talk to you. And we
You
really
too.
can't. I mean, honestly, we could probably go another hour.
But by then,
we
I
didn't
would
stop
switch us to
ourselves.
talking about the latest episode of Mandalorian behind the scenes, because that
Yeah, I did. I'm like halfway through that.
you got to go watch it, Joe.
Yeah. All right. So big thanks to everyone who showed up to listen live and comment. Very active comment section day. It was great to see you guys. For this very strange episode of the iMore show.
We miss Karen, but she's off being a Hollywood
miss
star.
Karen, but she's being a star. Yeah, she is.
Yes.
She's being a star.
Has she been confirmed as She-Hulk yet? Do we know? Is that spoilers? I'm not sure.
We're not supposed to say anything.
Okay. Oh, she could be the Invisible Woman.
Oh my God, Sue Richards.
Then you could be Reed Richards. Oh, I'm casting this whole thing. Steven would be Johnny Storm, and Oliver would be Ben Grimm.
Renee's fan casting from the iMore staff. There we go.
Oh, I got this.
All right. Thanks to everyone who's going to listen later in their podcatcher of choice. We do this for the listeners. I think this is going to be a special treat of an episode for them, Rene, because it's so odd. The odd episodes of podcasts are always my favorites.
Yes.
Huge thanks to Jim Metzendorf, our editor extraordinaire, who always makes us sound so wonderful. And until next time, this has been the iMore Show. Bye, everybody.